Hey guys, in today's video, I wanted to talk to you all about the Fortnite seasons and actually rank them. This is a video that I've wanted to do for a while, especially since this is something that is always being discussed on stream, like which Fortnite season is my favorite or what I think of particular Fortnite seasons. So I'm going to rank all of the Fortnite seasons, try to explain why I think what I do about them. If this is something you like and you'd like to see more of, I've thought of making more like longer in-depth videos talking about each season, what it did right, what it did bad, what the map changes were, what the event was, etc. Because there's a lot of people that didn't start playing until a certain season, so they don't really know what happened in the past season. So let me know if that's something you guys would like to see. If you enjoy this video, please do remember to like it and subscribe if you would like to see more. Also, comment down below your tier list as well, just S to D and where you would put each season. But I hope you guys enjoy the video. Obviously, we're going to start off with Season 1, and this is a pretty, I feel like controversial pick because I'm actually going to put this at a C. And the reason why I'm going to put this at a C is because the game was very basic. And as far as seasons go, this really wasn't a Fortnite season. There wasn't any map changes. There wasn't a lot of things added during this season. It was really short. The main thing was like the item shop was first added. There was no battle pass. There's a lot of reasons why I feel like Season 1 doesn't really stand out as that great of a season. I feel like it should just be a C. It was the game. It was very basic. And it was when Fortnite was just developing. So that's why I'm going to give it a C. I don't really rate it that highly. Some things that were added this season were the bush, the launch pad. I honestly don't know if there was anything else added. It was very, very short. It started late October and ended in December. So it was a pretty short season. That's why I'm going to give it a C, because just by modern comparisons, Season 1 really isn't a season per se. I feel like it would be easier to group Season 1 and 2 together and kind of have them be their own thing, because they were actually pretty similar. And I think I'm going to give Season 2 an A. It's okay. It's a lot of people's favorite season. It's when Fortnite started blowing up. It was the first Battle Pass, which was very, very good. We got the first map changes introduced to the game, or the first major map changes introduced to the game. Not at the start of the season, but some way through the season. We got things like Tilted, Shifty Shafts, Haunted, Snobby Shores, Junk Junction. That may or may not be it. There was a lot of locations added specifically to the left side of the map during Season 2 because that side of the map was mostly undeveloped. Some things that were added, and the reason why I don't actually rate this season that highly is if you look back at it, I feel like Season 2 is pretty outdated. Like recently in Fortnite, we've had the turbo building change and a lot of people are upset about it. Turbo building didn't come out until Season 3. You couldn't build through objects the majority of the time. Like they started adding that midway through the season, making it to where you could build through certain objects. But building in the game as it is, I feel like is not what we come to know as of Fortnite. I feel like a lot of people group seasons 2 to 4 together and just call it all Season 2. But Season 2 was actually really underdeveloped. We got things like the Boogie Bomb, the Suppressed Pistol. Great items that are still in the game to this day. The map changes were good. It was a good season, but I don't think it's the best version of Fortnite like a lot of people make it out to be. And that's why I'm going to put it at the A tier instead of the S tier. At the S tier, we're going to have Season 3. Like I said, this is when turbo building was added. This is when consistent 60 frames was added. If you think your frames are bad now, Season 2 and 1, the frame would just fluctuate all the time. If you got into a fight, it was really, really, really buggy a lot of times. And they started ironing that out like midway through the Season 2 and towards the end of Season 2. But Season 3 is when it got really stable. This is when we got turbo building. You could build through pretty much anything. You could auto material switch. So when you ran out of wood, it would automatically switch you to brick. This was a big deal back then. In Season 1 or 2, when you ran out of mats, you had to manually switch it. And that was not good. So that's why I put Season 3 here. Some items that we had were actually, I honestly don't know too many of the items, but this was a pretty good season. I think they added things like the guided missile launcher. I myself grouped Season 3 and 4 together pretty much. We had the meteors towards the end of the season. The battle pass was okay. I feel like these astronauts are kind of underrated. There wasn't any major map changes from what I remember this season. They ended up adding Lucky Landing, but this was before there was major map changes and a major storyline. Towards the end of the season, we had the meteor shower, and that was the build-up for Season 4, which we're going to get into now. Season 4, this is like the first modern season, in my opinion. We had the Battle Pass with Carbide and Omega selectable styles, the lights that you had to level up to get. Very good Battle Pass. We had major map changes with the meteor striking Dusty and making a hole in the ground, the divot. And this divot progressed throughout time. Initially, it was like a very modern military base, and then they were excavating the area of the meteors or whatever, and then it became an abandoned military base and became the area that was flooded with trees that we know today before it was eventually removed. But this is when we started to really get a lot of progression in the game as far as like the overarching storyline and as far as the map goes. They started to add things more consistently. We got turbo building. I don't think we got custom keybinds in this season, but we did get turbo building. They started making more balance related decisions. I feel like this is when they started going hard on double pump, nerfing the shotguns. And a lot of people think they nerfed the shotguns in Season 5, and we'll get to Season 5 in a bit. They actually nerfed shotguns in Season 4. In Season 4, they were really, really trying to combat double pump. And to do that, they started nerfing shotguns because every time they tried to nerf the delay, people still just use double pump or use double shotgun. So they were nerfing the damage and the headshot multiplier of shotguns. And then in Season 5, they completely removed double pump. They also buffed SMGs in Season 4 to try to make pump SMG a thing. And I actually started using pump tac towards the end of Season 4. This is why I want to make those more in-depth videos, because I feel like a lot of people don't actually know these things about Season 4. And how it actually worked, and how like the Season 5 is where people pin a lot of those things on. So I would rate Season 4 an S. Like I said, I do plan on making longer videos, more in-depth videos, but I think Season 3 and Season 4 were the peak of Fortnite. It is when it was the earliest iteration of modern Fortnite. I would say that. Like Season 1 and 2, building isn't what it was now, and it's just a very different game if you look back at old gameplay, whereas Season 4 more closely resembles what we have today, but it's more simplistic. So that's why I feel like a lot of people, when they say they like think Season 1 or 2 is perfect, I feel like more so what they mean is Season 3 and 4, but I could be wrong. At least that's my perspective on it. Season 5, I'm going to give a B. And this is probably going to be pretty controversial because a lot of people hate Season 5 for the reasons I was previously discussing with the whole double shotgun SMG thing. Like, everybody thinks in Season 5, the patch came out, they nerfed shotguns, they removed double pump or double shotgun, and they buffed SMGs. That's not true. They buffed SMGs and they nerfed shotguns in Season 4. They removed double shotgun in Season 5. And what they should have done after removing double shotgun was buff up shotguns a bit, because they nerfed them so much to combat double shotgun, and then it just didn't work out. So the balance was really off for a bit in Season 5, but they did tone down the SMGs. And I was already used to using pump SMG because I started doing it in Season 4 because the TAC SMG was absurd. They buffed the TAC SMG so much trying to make it a viable option to compete with double shotgun. And I think it did, but just a lot of people didn't want to learn that new thing, and they just stuck with double pump or pump TAC. So that's why I feel like Season 5 is underrated. Like, a lot of people hate on it for those reasons because it forced them to adapt. But I think it was somewhat good. Was it perfect? No. It was just okay. Maybe it should be a C, but I give it a B. I really liked the map changes. Paradise Palms, one of my favorite locations. Lazy Links, one of my favorite locations ever. The rifts were a decent idea. They were kind of overdone, and like there was just way too many of them, but it made a lot of spots more viable, and it definitely encouraged action. You could land somewhere on the edge. You could land Paradise and not be zone screwed because you could hit a rift and then get to Salty and Retail pretty quickly and go and chain for a lot of kills and try to get as many kills as you can. Also, this added the ATK, which I think is the best vehicle they've ever had in the game. It's not the most effective, but in terms of balance, I feel like the ATK brings no negatives and allows you to transport or travel. If you are driving around with the ATK, you're an easy target. So if you use it incorrectly, people are going to kill you. You can't just avoid fights like you could with the plane or the mech or even the quad crusher sometimes. But you can also travel around the map quickly and go find more action if you want to. So I think the ATK was a fine vehicle, and I would love to have it back. And those are the reasons why I rate Season 5 so highly, is because the map changes were really good. The ATK was really good. The rifts were a good concept that they did way too much of. And a lot of the reasons why people hate on it just was literally non-existent. People were mad about so many things, but the core thing was removing double shotgun, and I don't know how I feel about that. I was upset at the time. I don't really care either way, but I feel like the hate was just way too much. So that's where we're gonna put Season 5. Season 6, we also had the cube in Season 5, and that developed into Season 6. So Season 6, we had the cube island, which would fly around and create more mobility for people to use. We had the Shadow Stones, which I did not like personally, but they weren't as big of a problem as some other things that Fortnite has added to the game. And then we also had a shotgun buff towards the end of the season, which made shotguns really, really good. And it's something they had needed to do for quite some time buffing shotguns gave us what we know of as modern shotguns. The old, like, just really, like, 7 to 200 damage with the pumps or whatever, it was gone, and pumps, shotguns in general, were way more consistent after Season 6, and I feel like Season 6 is pretty solid. Map changes with the island were okay, and the map really evolved throughout time with the way the island traveled around it, and then towards the end of the season with the butterfly event, Loot Lake transformed into what I think was the best version of Loot Lake. This current one is kind of okay too, just because there's a rift there, or the Season 9 Loot Lake was pretty good. But I think after the event of Season 6 was when Loot Lake was probably at its prime. This season also had the zombies, which were not good. It also had redeploy that was added constantly, and then they took it away. There was a lot of weird tests and things going on this season with the zombies and with the redeploy. They had explosive damage through walls, which they quickly took away. But I think Season 6 was another good season. Obviously, not everything is going to be perfect. Not every item is going to be completely necessary. But compared to some of the modern seasons, like Season 7, Season 10, even Season 8 and 9 people disliked, but I don't dislike them as much. I feel like Season 6 was actually pretty okay. And then that brought us to Season 7. I wish, or we'll get to that later, but I did not like Season 7. Planes were horrible. I was not a fan of planes whatsoever. And they nerfed them literally, I think, every single update, every single week. And then they ultimately needed to be removed anyways. I don't think they had any place in the game. I don't think absurd vehicles have any place in the game anyways, but that's just my perspective on it. Like, I don't like the planes. I don't like the mechs. I want the game to be more about your guns and your building and the decisions you make, and not like what vehicle you use. So I was not a fan of that. The Infinity Blade, completely unnecessary, but they did vault it. The items they added this season were mostly unnecessary. We had the boombox, we had the scoped revolver, we had the infantry rifle, and it was really bad when it came out. I think Season 7 was probably one of the worst versions of the loot pool that we have ever had. It seemed like a lot of things that were adding to the game, and they didn't take enough things out. We had the ice traps, I think, added in Season 7. There was just a lot of things that were unnecessary in Season 7. I think the map changes were the worst map changes we've ever had, with Greasy becoming an ice area. That entire snow area just was not ideal, in my opinion. And they literally made the map larger to add nothing. Like, if you go and look at an old version of the map compared to the Season 7 map, Greasy used to be the edge. Now it's a frozen lake and there's mountains over there. They made the map larger to add pretty much nothing. It's mostly just open space that really isn't used. Polar Peak was okay, but when it initially came out, it was pretty bad. I was never personally a fan of it, but I know it was a location that a lot of people liked. Frosty Flight's too far on the edge. Happy Hamlet, too far on the edge, in my opinion. And you could argue, like, oh, just use planes, but that's not how I like to play the game. I want to land at a location, kill the people there, loot it, rotate to another location, kill the people there, rotate to another location, and until the game eventually ends. And I feel like the snow area just really did not facilitate that. Greasy Grove was one of my favorite locations, and they took it away and literally added nothing in its place. They just froze a lake and then said, GG, like, this area is... They didn't replace it with anything good. Like when they took out retail and added Mega Mall, I liked retail. This shirt literally says straight out of Retail Row. Let me go to OBS. Literally says straight out of Retail Row. One of my favorite locations. But at least when they added Mega Mall, they were trying to do something. Whereas with Greasy, I feel like they weren't trying to do anything with that location when they made it a nice lake. So that is going to be why I rate Season 7 the way I do. I feel like it was just mostly a failure. They did eventually add Siphon, and that was one of the best things the game has ever had. But that was like the last update of Season 7. So I don't give it that much credit for having Siphon, in the same way I'm not going to give Season 8 too much credit for having Siphon. So Season 8 comes out. I think I want to give this season a C. I liked it initially. The early release of Season 8, or the first week or so, was the best version of Fortnite I think we've ever had, period. We had Siphon. We had not too much mobility, but we had mobility. And the loot pool was somewhat okay. The loot pool kind of became a mess towards the end of it. And the map changes were not that great in Season 8, I thought. They took away Lazy Links and added Lazy Lagoon. Not personally a fan. They added the volcano instead of whaling. I wasn't personally a fan of that. They added Sunny Steps instead of whatever was there. I don't really think there was anything there, but you could say instead of Risky. I think they added the block in Season 7. Did they add the block in Season 7 and take away Risky? The block was a pretty good location and a really good idea. I would have personally not put it where they did when they took away Risky, but bonus points to whichever season brought the block. But yeah, Season 8 started out really, really good, and then they took away Siphon. They added Ballers, and they just made the game way worse. I feel like Ballers, once again, like I was talking about before, I don't like absurd vehicles dictating the game, and that's what they did with Ballers. So I wasn't personally a fan of that. The map changes I wasn't personally a fan of, and the fact that they took away Siphon really early on in the season, I wasn't personally a fan of. But I think Season 8 wasn't as bad as Season 7 or Season 10. Season 9, I personally liked it. I'm going to give it a B. The reasons why, I really liked the slipstream. The sky bases I was not a fan of, but I liked the slipstream. I feel like the game was at a pretty fast pace. And that's what was enjoyable to me. I like to get a good amount of kills and still win the game. I don't want to win with low kills. So, yeah. I liked the mobility because it made it more reasonable to push people. Duo squads was really fun for me in this season. The combat shotgun, when like they started the season, removed the pump. I liked the pump before, right? I was a pump player before. But the fact that they removed the pump and they were trying something new, I didn't mind as much. And I feel like the combat really fits my playstyle, just because basically how you want to use the combat is get positioning, get height, and then take advantage of its range and punish the player. I feel like it just leads to a pretty consistent playstyle. You don't get as many one taps, but you're taking less risks as well. And I feel like a lot of people like overreact to how bad the combat was at first. It was really inconsistent for like the first week, I believe, but people act like it was just bad until the end of the season. And that's not necessarily the case. A majority of players seemed like they were just angrily reacting to the pump being gone and not trying to try things, whereas I typically try to try things unless it makes no sense. Like the turbo building nerf they recently did and then reverted, I thought it made no sense. So that's not something that I really enjoy trying, or when they change something core to the game like that. But when they change like the loot pool or add a new gun or nerf a weapon, whatever, I'm open to trying that and trying to find like the new best way to play the game or the new meta. So I didn't hate Season 9 as much as other people. Neo Tilted was not good. The map changes were not good in general. Mega Mall I did not like. But the slipstream itself, I thought made the game a lot more fun and made a lot more locations viable that wouldn't be viable otherwise because you had the slipstream to quickly rotate. So that wraps it up for Season 9. And then Season 10 is not over yet. I wish there was an E. I would rank Season 10 an E currently. The map changes, not good in my opinion. I really don't like all the gimmicks. Pandora, I do really like. It's one of my favorite locations ever, I think. But Dusty Divot was also one of my favorite locations. They took that away, and I'm okay with them taking a location away. Dusty Depot is okay. I call it Depot as a joke. But Dusty Depot is okay, I guess. I personally prefer Divot, but I'm not like super tilted that they took it away. At least they tried to do something there, you know? When they took away Greasy and added an Ice Lake, they didn't actually make a viable location, and I don't like that. But taking away Dusty Divot and adding Dusty Depot, I'm okay with. The loot pool is actually somewhat decent this season. I feel like if they removed the drum shotgun, the loot pool would be in a pretty decent spot. But I really don't like all the gimmicks. I don't like the zombies and retail. I don't like the no building and tilted. I feel like all they needed to do with this season is clean up the loot pool a bit and then add some old locations. Like they could bring tilted back as just normal tilted and people would be very excited. They could bring retail back as normal retail and people would be pretty excited. I don't mind Loot Lake as much because I do enjoy the Rift because there's very little mobility this season. And that's another thing. They vaulted the quad crashers and we don't have much mobility. So I feel like it makes it where there's very few locations that I want to go to on the map since there is such little mobility. Been going to Pandora a lot. I really like Pandora, but you get zone screwed there a lot and there isn't quad crashers or drift boards as prevalently as there should be to like make these locations viable. So I feel like if they added the ATK, this season would be pretty solid and like added it to a good amount of locations. This season would be pretty solid, but I personally don't really like the gimmicks. Obviously the mech, I haven't even talked about that. The mech is absurd. Like I talked about with the planes and the ballers, I don't like vehicles really dictating the game, but that's just my personal preference. I feel like the shotgun meta is at a pretty decent spot right now, aside from the drum shotgun. The tack, the pump, and the combat are all pretty usable. The SMGs aren't dominating the game. Like there's some good things about the game. I feel like all they needed to do with Season 10 was not make mistakes, and they've made a lot of mistakes thus far with the mech nerfing turbo building. They did revert it rather quickly, which is good. But so far, I feel like Season 10 is not really good, and it doesn't seem like it's going to recover. Like a lot of their philosophy or whatever for how they want Fortnite to be, I don't personally agree with, and I don't really like the way the game is going, even though there are some good things about it. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you all thought of my tier list in the comments below. Also, like I said, put your own tier list in there. And remember to drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you guys another time. Thanks for watching.